It is the 21st of January 2020. Hello, my name is Julie Malcolm. Thank you for having listened to my previous installments as I continue on this journey toward my PhD in forensic linguistics. It is important for me at this time to do a second part to part 2. So you have already listened to part 2A, and I'll take you through part 2B, where I will give you specific details of conversations I have had regarding the abuse of power by Professor Hubert Devonish and actions that amounted to, or utterances that amounted to, a conflict of interest from the two persons who succeeded him as my research supervisors. So I recall in summer of 2016, I was on campus and I engaged in conversation with Professor Devonish regarding funding for my research. And he advised me that I should not apply to the university for funding, because whereas the university provides funding upon successful application for same to graduate students in order to allow them to complete their research or to progress their research, the funding would take forever to get to me. Therefore, he as supervisor would make funding available through the Jamaican language unit. At the time, he was the coordinator. Now, as a research student at UWI, you know you cannot make an application for funding without the support, the approval, the signature, the signed approval of your supervisor. And at the time, I thought, okay, so things take time, funding will take time, and he's investing in my research because he sees the quality of it, and he's trying to get things done quickly. So okay, all right. In the same so I didn't apply for funding. I deferred to his wisdom, and he made the funding available. However, we had a shortfall as the research progressed, the data collection progressed, because of the lack of availability that was not foreseen by one of the informants in particular. So we went over the time that we had initially allotted to accommodate this very important informant, and so tens of thousands of dollars had to be paid from my pocket because his funding had dried up and I had not applied on his advice to the university for funding. Needless to say, the data was collected. But in the same conversation, I remember us talking about the analysis of my research. And when we got to the point of analysis, Prof. Devonish told me that, you should, based on your training in performance, you should, because I am a graduate of Edna Manley's School of the College of the Visual and Performing Arts, the Jamaica School of Drama. So he was like, based on your training in the area, you should be one of the informants. But the issue I had with that was that my interests would be conflicted, and so I posed it to him. Why would I be an informant and then turn around to be the analyst who would analyze the data collected from said informant? Wouldn't my interests be conflicted at that point? And he shouted, and this is quite normal for Professor Hubert Devonish to move from 0 to 100 in less than a second. He shouted, "You ain't analyzing nothing." Now, he's Guyanese, so that speech is normal for him. "You ain't analyzing nothing. You ain't analyzing nothing." And I backed off because by then I had grown accustomed. I had been engaging with him for over a year. I had grown accustomed to his rants, and I knew all too well that when he became like that, he would hear nothing, he would understand nothing, and the conversation would be futile. I backed off. We went on summer break. We returned to school in September 2016. I made an appointment to speak with him in his office outside of regular consultation hours, because we would go for consultations every Friday. And of course, I raised the point again. Why would you knowingly tell me that I should create a conflict of interest in my research. You see, I said knowingly because Prof. Devonish had been the head of the Department of Language, Linguistics and Philosophy at least twice, if my data is correct. He taught ethics to graduate students at the university. I've had sessions with him. He taught research methods to graduate students at the university. I was in his class, and my grade wasn't too shabby either. So he knows this. He knowingly gave me advice that would eventually amounted to a conflict of interest. When I pointed it out to him, I went further to tell him that I was in no way willing to give up my research. You see, I've had previous research interests, two major ones that became the possession of other researchers. And that's the kindest way I can put it. So I was very firm, and I shared with him, I'm not giving up my research to anybody. I'm not going to deliberately create do something that is a conflict of interest that would prevent me from making full use of my very own research. And to this, Professor Devonish replied that the path of discourse that I was leading myself down was based on power, was controlled by power, and that he had power and I had none. Prof. Devonish said he had power because he had education. You see, he had a PhD. I still don't have a PhD. Prof. Devonish said he had experience and I had none. Prof. Devonish has, to the best of my knowledge, been researching for the better part of 40 years. He has had his PhD for, if we count 2020, about 42 years. I don't have a PhD. Prof. Devonish said he had power because of his gender. You see, he's a man. I'm just a woman, just a girl. And so when he shared that with me, anybody who knows me knows that I'm a chatterbox. I chat enough, I chat long, and just by virtue of me doing audio recordings, that is a testament to that. But I could not come to terms with the fact that my research supervisor was sitting in front of me and telling me that it made no sense. I would have gone. I decided to go public with this because he would be believed based on his power, his education, experience, and gender. So I would basically not be believed. And in that moment, I was dumbstruck. I was silent. I could not speak because of the conflict that was happening inside my head. And this is what, this is not the only thing that he did. I recalled in that very year, I think it was about September, I was given a contract to sign to work with him on a project, his project. And then the contract I got stated that whatever research you engage in while you work on this project with me, that research would become the property of the Jamaican language unit. It would cease to be yours. And I handed back the contract. And I refused to sign it because I was engaged in my personal research leading to my PhD in linguistics. I did not see that research, that contract again until the middle of February 2017, the very day when he was so angry with me and so discourteous in our interactions, when I did work and took work to him for him to look at. I didn't see that research, that contract again until that day when it had changed. The wording had changed to state that research excluding my PhD was a kind of research that he was referring to, and that my master's leading to a PhD would be untouchable by him. So giving bad advice that contract, those utterances that he would have made with me in his office regarding power and who had power and who had none, I have no reason but to believe that based on his May 11th letter, where he again attempted to lay claim to my entire research and to render my years of work null and void, where stand as proof that he cannot be trusted in a public office and that he needs to be held accountable for the wrong that he has done, the lack of resources that I've allowed myself to experience because I chose to do a PhD. And what he said was similar to what the two ladies said to me when I went to him. Remember, the university appointed these two ladies on his recommendation, and these two ladies had never taught me at all. We had never engaged in any detailed conversation regarding politics, the environment, academia, anything. They knew nothing about my competence outside of what they would have been told by Professor Devonish. And when I lobbied for a meeting over 6 months after at least the chief supervisor had my research, and she didn't give me any feedback on my research, when I finally lobbied for a meeting and got a meeting in January 2018, both ladies sat together. One was Skyped in, two of us were physically present, and they together told me to throw out my research that I had been working on for 2 years, that Professor Devonish, my previous supervisor, deemed as impressive work and as excellent work, and advocated on my progress report, official progress report, that I should continue doing. They said I should throw it out. They said they had no competence in me as a graduate researcher. They did not believe that I had what it took to complete a PhD. Therefore, I should do a master's degree instead. Now, had they done their research, they would have realized that it would have been futile to ask me or to advise me to complete another research at the same level, in the same discipline, at the same university. Because you see, I already have a master's degree in English language. I got that master's degree from UWI Mona. They would have also realized that they did not have the correct information on which to assess my competence as a researcher. They have never engaged with me. They did not give me any information about anybody with whom they had engaged that would have given them the idea that I would have been incompetent. I have a master's in linguistics, in English language. It is laced with linguistics courses. I have an honors degree, not first class, but an honors degree from the University of the West Indies. This is a second class honors degree in linguistics and drama from the University of the West Indies. I'm a graduate of the Jamaica School of Drama at Edinburgh College of the Visual and Performing Arts. I completed a 3-year teaching qualification at the Michael University College. I have been teaching for 20 years. I'm not a straight A student, but I have what it takes to complete the research, and the very research that is deemed as excellent and impressive, I created it. The only person who assisted me was Jesus Christ. So if the research is awesome and amazing and excellent and impressive, what of the creator of said research? And one of the supervisors even went as far as to tell me that the issues I had regarding supervisor-supervisee relationship, those issues were because of me. It was my fault. I was a negative person, and so I was attracting negative energy. Now, at this point, I found my tongue, and I'm very respectful, because to date, none of them has ever accused me of being disrespectful to them. I tell them the truth, and they may be angry about the truth that I have told them, but I've always remembered that you can disagree, but you can also disagree respectfully. So I told them I wouldn't take their advice. I would not throw out my research. You see, they wanted me to throw out my research and go back to an idea that I had in the original stages of my research, and they didn't even know that the idea was mine, because when they suggested it to me, I immediately recognized it for what it was. An initial idea I had in 2016 that I discarded because of its limited scope. So I told them I wouldn't throw out my research. If the research is a smart job, then I am smart for having created it. If my research is good enough to be claimed by my previous supervisor, who is considered to be smart by them and by the university, then it's good enough to be claimed by me. I told them I would keep my research. I told them I already had a master's degree in the discipline, and I would not complete another master's degree. It would have been to no advancement of my profession. I told them I was completing a PhD. And I told that particular supervisor, who incidentally has a law degree, that blaming me for the unethical conduct of Professor Hubert Devonish was akin to blaming a rape victim for being raped by asking her what she was wearing when the incident occurred. Thank you for having listened to a very long part 2B, but I thought it necessary to explain to you by giving you specific details of discourse in which my supervisors and I had engaged that amounted to abuse of power, defamation of character, academic dishonesty, and a conflict of interest. All three supervisors were relieved of their duties due to ethical reasons. Does it mean that I should not complete a PhD because the UWI assigned to me persons who were so taken up by my research that they wanted to separate me from my research? Is it wrong for me to want a PhD? Is there a limited supply of PhDs at the UWI in the field of linguistics? Thank you for listening. On to installment number 3. Share if you think it's worthy. Thank you.